Hey, hey, hey. It's Filter Free Friday, y'all. Listen, I am so glad y'all here. One thing that I really used to love was listening to the radio station and Tom Joyner because he would have every day a 365 day Black History moment. And he would talk about, the positive things that happened throughout Black history, and then also sometimes things that were just little known Black history facts. And I was especially interested in his particular show because it was always like really short, 2 minute, get you up to speed on kind of just what was happening in Black history on that particular day. And I think he called it 365 Black. And if you don't know, there's still this site called blackhistorydaily.com where you can find out like what's going on in Black history on any particular day. And so um, I noticed several years ago that whenever we started talking about Black history, that there would be people who would say, well, I'm Black 365 days a year. And I remember being shocked by that because, of course, but Black history is not typically about you. It is about your history, about the history of people who are Black Americans who have not historically been included in a regular. See what I just did there? In U.S. history. And so there was an adjacent body of work. And I think that on this here Friday the 13th, that should not be lost on us that the NAACP was founded in 1908 on this particular day as a result or a reaction to a race riot that had occurred. So we end up getting the NAACP. And I often bring up tactical empathy because hostage negotiators coined the term, and it is basically a form of empathy that they use to get people to release the hostages. So it is understanding other people, understanding what they think, feel, and believe in order to get them to do what you want. And I was really struggling about what I was going to talk about today because what is on top for me is that we have access to millions of pages of the Epstein's files, which I do not intend to read. I do not intend to trigger myself in that way. And what I'm hearing, though, as from credible sources, is that our commander in chief is mentioned in this document thousands, if not over a million times. And when I'm not practicing tactical empathy, I don't understand that, right? Because I'm like, how can you abuse, sexually assault, rape children, and people not just be outraged, right? But when I look back in Black history, you see, I got my Equal Justice Initiative calendar here with me because when I look back in Black history, I think it's important to know how people have thought about children throughout history. So on October 3rd, 1908, in Fulton County, Kentucky, 5 Black children in the Walker family were lynched alongside their father by a mob of 50 white men. The men shot to death 4 of the children, including an infant who was hit by a bullet while in the arms of their mother, and burned the 5th child alive in the Walker family's home. No one was ever convicted for these murders. A 12-year-old Black boy named L.D. Nelson was seized by a white mob from a jail in Afuskey County, I don't know if I'm saying that right, Oklahoma, and hanged from a bridge along with his mother on May 24th, 1911. If you go to November 12th, 1935, 2 teenage Black boys, 15-year-old Ernest Collins and 16-year-old Benny Mitchell, were lynched by a mob of at least 700 white men, women, and children in Colorado, Texas. And the list goes on and on. If you even just look back to 2012, Trayvon Martin was basically walking in his own neighborhood with a pack of Skittles and ended up being murdered by George Zimmerman. And so when I think about why it's important to know that history, it'll help you have an understanding that some people don't care about children like that. They just don't. And then once you understand that, then you know what we're dealing with. I watch Fox News often, and I watch Fox News often so that I can know what other people are consuming. And when you watch Fox News right now, what you'll see is that almost all of the coverage is about Nancy Guthrie. There's no coverage right now about the fact that a certifiable white nationalist is being recommended as the head of state right now. He's in current hearings right now. And you go, meanwhile, when I say Happy Black History Month, people for whom we're trying to celebrate their history say, I'm Black every day. And I believe by and large that sometimes when we repeat things, that we are doing so because it's simple. It doesn't require a whole lot of intellectual horsepower. It's punchy. It kind of knocks people off their square. I sound like I'm being innovative, right? Maybe. And I think it's important. I think it's important that we know and understand that even the flea story that I tell, most of the time, the psychologist that is quoted is Martin Seligman from 1970s, a white psychologist. But the seminal study of fleas and their behavior that demonstrates learned helplessness and the behavior of insects other than spiders was Dr. C.H. Turner, Charles H. Turner, Black scientist and psychologist in 1910. Even I didn't know that C.H. Turner was a Black man, and I had been telling that story for at least half a dozen years before I found out about it. Now, what does that have to do with tactical empathy, and why is this important? Understand that if ultimately we are trying to create an environment whereby a certain group of people is in power and that certain group of people is considered better and smarter and all the things, then you have to first get rid of all of the information historically that would prove otherwise. And so if you're telling me that you have done all that is possible over the last number of years that you've been on the planet since Carter G. Woodson instituted Negro History Week 100 years ago, that you have done everything possible every day of your life to ensure that people know the history of racial pillage and terror that has gotten us here. They also know the history of excellence that disproves these concepts of supremacy. If you're telling me that you do that every day, then no, we really don't need a special month to highlight these things. But in my experience, that is just simply not true. It's just simply not true. What my experience has shown me is that every single possible tactic to prevent you from knowing that C.H. Turner was an amazing scientist and sociologist and psychologist in 1910, everything is made for you not to know that. Everything. When I look at all the information that's in this Equal Justice Initiative calendar and the folks at the EJI, founded by Brian Stevenson, I mean, I'm regularly surprised. And so I think that we have to, especially those of you who do celebrate holidays and birthdays and things. Listen, Monday is President's Day. I believe that the current presidents know they're presidents. Why do we need a special day? And these are people who get treated amazingly. So why do we have a special day? If by chance you celebrate your birthday, I know every single day that you were born. So why do we have to celebrate your birthday? Tomorrow is Valentine's Day, and all these lovely women are going to be told that they get loved on every single day. So what's the big deal about Valentine's Day? Well, if true, I bet she wouldn't be asking, but they ain't asking about that if they feel loved every day and don't need some special day, right? We are a society that is made up of celebrations. And yet it is this singular topic, Black History Month, the shortest month of the year, actually, that started out as a week 100 years ago. It's just this only topic where we go, well, why we need that? And I just invite us to think about, why do we participate in it? Why do we participate in our own foolishness? And I want you to pay attention to the things that people are screaming about versus the things that people are being real calm and centered about. Because when I watch news stations that are not my own, what I notice is, ooh, child, they screaming loud about languages spoken and certain history months. But when you see what they lower their voices around, what they lower their temperature about, it is the rape, pillage, and terror of children. They talk lower, they talk calmer, they say things, well, like 15 ain't the same as 6. My own lived experience and lived experiences of most women I know, what the data says is showing us that children, and so my question to you is, what are we going to do and how are we going to focus? What are you going to do in your little corner of the world to make something different be possible? Because flippantly saying things like, well, I'm Black every single day, it just ain't it. I, for one, am not impressed. That's obvious. So now what? Because when I think about what was happening in the 1950s, 1960s, especially around school integration, whether you agree with it after the fact or not, I will never forget when Toni Morrison said, you can take me into the bowels of the women prisons and I can't find 20 Black women who would be willing to push over a bus with children in it and harass those children. But if you know the history of racial pillage and terror, you know that it was mothers, sisters of churches, white women who were willing to push over school buses with children in. And I am not saying that to judge. I am saying that so that we can look at the reality of what we're experiencing right now and asking ourselves, why are not more people up in arms about these files and what these files are saying? Still willing to stand by a person who, if half of what I've heard is true, should be in jail. You have to ask yourself, am I living in accordance with my own values? Or am I just sitting around going, oh my God, I can't believe, surprised? Because while I say I understand history and study history every day, my behavior and my actions are showing that I have no understanding of how bad things could be. I was actually this month, one last thing I'll share, was revisiting the calendar. In 1917, Congress passed the Immigration Act of 1917 to bar the entry of Asian, Mexican, and Mediterranean people from coming into the country. Much of what we are experiencing right now is because we took our foot off the gas pedal and we are rolling back. And part of why we're shocked is because all of these I'm Black 365 folk don't really know the history of what's happened in our country. And I am just saying, if you can name a thing, you don't have to judge a thing. I'm just naming it. Just name this thing. Name it for what it is. And then we won't be surprised. You can't be a good hostage negotiator if you're surprised all the time. And tactical empathy is understanding exactly what you're looking at. If you are arguing with reality, you are going to lose, but only 100% of the time. Every time. That's Byron Katie. Byron Kathleen said that, and she has never been more right. We got to look at the reality of this. There are some things for which some people think, actually, the more money and the more power I have, I should be able to do it. It's money and power that gives me the right to do it. And then some of us sit around and go, Let us figure out how we can have that much money so that we can do these horrific things too. I didn't know what I was going to talk to y'all about today, which is probably why I'm all over the place. But at the end of the day, February is currently Black History Month. And I am celebrating everyone who is willing to celebrate with me. All right. All right. It's Filter Free Friday, y'all. We got plenty work to do.